Ship coming together.
Mm.
The classic alliance. It's like the Shadow Council calls for aid, and the Fellowship will answer.
Yeah, that's what that's
Mm.
what I was thinking. Yeah, show up on the third day at dawn.
This is one of
Mm.
actually the
Vice
most
versa.
beautiful like visions I ever saw, which was at Sacred Sons at the very beginning when I was facilitating with them. Philip Folsom, who I've mentioned before, he works with Wolves, next level men's lore keeper. He's literally like, Kev, he's like, one day, men's work won't be this niche, hippie thing that we do in the desert. One day, men's work will be mainstream and corporations will pay us millions of dollars. And every men's work brand will have their own banner and bannermen. And we'll all arise together with our heraldry and our men and our squadrons. Like he's an ex-army guy. And I was just like, dude, that's fucking epic. It's literally like it's like the battle for Minas Tirith, but it's men's work versus like tyrannical, like vampiric governments and bullshit and wokeism, etc.
I mean, on the third day of the dawn, isn't that when Gandalf came cresting over the hills to the two towers? Am I getting that
Yeah,
right? All
yeah,
Yeah,
right, so I just need to mention something about that because the scene that's burned in my psyche, which like speaks to a deep part of my ethic and the syncretism of might and magic, is Gandalf tearing it up on the ramparts with a staff in one hand and a sword in the other. That is all you need to know about what it is to show up and make change, balance.
he is whacking people with that thing too. It's not like he's not like casting spells throughout, which is
yeah.
good. You know, they overdo the spells in a lot of this like new new fiction, right? Like they try to make it over the top. I don't know when that started, but Gandalf's just kind of whacking people with that thing. You know, like
Yeah,
he's not even doing like the when he fights Saruman and they're kind of in a little bit of like they're using the force a little. They're not casting any lightning bolts or anything, but there's
right.
force and will there. He's not even doing that. You don't even see any of
He's
that. You just
literally
see him.
just he could be using like insane magic and he's just beating the shit out of orcs with his staff.
Yeah,
Like he's a
smacking him.
badass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you got to take a moment to like juxtapose him to Bombadil. I'm sorry, it's just kind of you got to mention that because even Gandalf has his like fallacies and failings as some strange cosmic alien star being thing. And the first time that I like witnessed his interactions with Tom Bombadil, who's purportedly the most powerful of all sorcerers and wizards, it's like, man, Bombadil's more like a hobbit. And Gandalf is always like, man, like having this strange relationship with the hobbits, choosing them to be like the torchbearers and like learning a lot from their humility and their humbleness. And the thing I noticed about Tom Bombadil is like he's very much like that. He's like, yeah, I know I could just like snap my fingers and change the world, but it's not about imposing my will. It's about listening and guiding others like you, Gandalf.
There's whole Reddit threads and theories on forums that Bombadil is the strongest Istari of the because they're basically demigods, right? Like I don't know how deep y'all are into Tolkien lore, but the Maiar are demigods, Istari are like the chosen. Bombadil's the first one. He has many like references that he was there at the dawn of creation.
Yeah.
And Tolkien, I think he's using them as like the wise men metaphor. It's biblical, it's blah blah blah. They could be Atlanteans. They could be, there could be some of the secret Earth history that maybe Tolkien knew about. But Bombadil represents like, yeah, he's like a watcher in Marvel, where it's like, yeah, I want the races and like time to have free will and organically emerge. Whereas Gandalf's kind of like, he's done that, but he's also like, yeah, we should probably like get to work because evil is going to destroy everything. So it's like a very
Yeah.
Exactly.
beautiful. It's great.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think he
can't
has
help
that
but
line.
notice.
I
Oh,
thought
go
the
ahead.
movie.
He has that
I
line
thought the
about
movie.
being there before the trees. I think because that's the one that everyone references because Tolkien doesn't play around when he's talking about trees. So
No.
when he says that he was there, he was there when the mountains were formed and like something about before the trees. And so that's kind of it's that's why there's like this there's almost I think yeah, you're right on these forums there's definitely some I don't want to call it fiction, but like fan interpretation that marks Bombadil as like God, like OG God, like as an as a man in the forest with yellow boots with, by the way, like the perfect Catholic wife, that makes pie and leaves it out for him, and they're like for Tolkien, they're like supposedly the perfect couple, like they represent the best version of a couple that's been together forever, and she makes him pie, and very very quaint.
And if you look at that a little more mythically and archetypally, Bombadil is very druidic, right? You mentioned the trees, like he has this relationship with the tree that he like asks for counsel from. He sends Gandalf to the tree to like, I think it's where he, is that where he got the wood for his staff? I forget, but very much druidic in his way, right? And
Mhm.
I think there's something to that, a nod to it.
Oh, there is. I think Tolkien in particular, I don't know how deep we want to go here, but the thing about Tolkien and especially that like Silmarillion culture, the multiple ages, the rounding of Aya and the trees that have the lights because the moons are destroyed, and like all that stuff, that is all very, and not to mention, I would say like the song, the way that the
Mm-hmm.
universe comes to be, and you have Morgoth, who's the
Beautiful.
distorted song, who tries to like take the song over, and
Mm-hmm.
he has the different starts with a V, Valar, yeah, the Valar who like
Mm-hmm.
represent these different so you kind of he has this like multiplex of archetypes and gods, goddesses that represent this. There's the smith and the grower, right? The like farmer, the one that grows things. That they all like represent these different aspects of being, and they're all singing. And half of them end up like singing on Morgoth's tune for a time, right?
Yep.
And then like, but then he raises his right hand and he raises his left hand, and then at once he puts both hands up, and this is Aluvatar, and he does that, and it stops, and then he says something really wise about how like even Morgoth, the by the way the best among them, who had a little bit from all of them, the most like Aluvatar, he said even mighty Morgoth will learn that even the sounds he makes are through me, or like representative of myself. So that's all. And then he says, let me show you what you made with your song, and then he like shows the universe. So I think that Tolkien had a very so I think it's also, this is what I go back and forth with him on, is was it implicit, like I don't know how much he explicitly understood everything that he was doing, or if he just tapped into this mythic, implicit kind of like understanding that he was able to, that for him manifested as this perfect story, right?
No, he was
And
channeling. Like he was well
yeah.
read. He was sitting after World War One. I mean, these are accounts, right? We don't actually know because his journals are like fragmented, but he's sitting in the fields smoking, tobacco and probably some wackier tobacco. And he's just like meditating on all he's read. And he channeled a timeless story that the evidence for it is how much it resonates with people, even though it's fiction. That it has a piece of all these myths that we know and love, the symbology. And I think it has pieces of our racial memory of like the like hidden
Yeah.
past of what humans really are. That's what I believe.
I mean, and as
I
far as all ancient lore, I'm a little biased, but I can't help but see how much it is influenced, predominantly from my point of view, from Scandinavian and Norse mythology. I don't know any other kind of, backgrounds that talk about fairies, dwarves, elves, living trees, and all that kind of stuff. So, I like that.
Yeah, he was trying to create a mythos for the British Isles that he considered on par with what the mainland had.
Well, in particular, he does reference, he's a big fan of Norse mythology, right? The Middle Earth that's straight
Midgard.
out of yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
there's an intentionality behind, like he will reference, like he's not out there referencing like ancient Chinese myth, really. He doesn't really
Right.
mention that he's inspired so much by that. So there is a certain level of intentionality, I think, behind the Norse aspects of Tolkien. And then, what I was thinking was, so if often whenever I think, well, how do I tell the truth? And when I do that, often the answer is something like a mythic level. We have to, if we really want to tell the truth, we can't just use these words. These are really bad at it.
Right.
And so I start to think in a mythic structure of how I want to go about that. So if I really want to tell
Precisely.
the truth about something important, there's a lot of intentionality behind how do I encompass these this plethora of sigils and feeling and magic and the infinite and the finite coalescing in my angle of perspective. How do I speak to that in a way that'll resonate? And I worry that now after we're talking, I'm like, oh, maybe I should be a little less intentional, because like the way that Tolkien, like Kevin was just saying, sits back, has a smoke, and just like is just this bursting with all these like forces, that he's just like calmly writing. They talk about like that first fragment they have of him where it's like, there once was a hobbit who lived on the Shire. And like, that's the first reference point for like hobbits, like just this, like the start of a story, like right there. And like how many forces were like just pour the energy, right? Like a conduit just pouring through him. I don't know. And I remember them saying something like he wrote that between classes, like just on a break. It came to him, he wrote it down, and he had another class. And it's like that was done channeling, right? So the
Hmm.
intention wasn't in the particulars, but in the intention
Hmm.
itself, right? And so that's an interesting thing to think about, is how to where to stop the intention, right? Like the intention at the energy, but before the words, and how
Hmm.
that works with our neocortex and deeper parts of our brain, and the way to
Yeah.
really tap into that to tell a story.
Yeah. And speaking of intention and concretizing through archetype and myth, for those who have been following along and like, where the hell are these guys going and why do they care so much about this? Well, Christopher, Kevin, and myself, we have a world that we've created, you know, um, called the Fellowship, which is a men's mystery school. And it's called the Fellowship intentionally, as we both have, there we go, there's the ring right there, like deeply been influenced and inspired by these stories in our youth. And there's something there in the myth, in the symbolism, in the archetypes that we feel is necessary to look at and revive in a way into this world, like bring that energy of fellowship for men specifically right now into the world. And so this is why we're starting here. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think Christopher was really cool the way that he went about setting this up and everything. I asked for some good direction, and the best he had for me was something like, "Let's just show up and smash our heads together and see what magic happens." So I like that. That's good direction from on
Yeah.
Christopher's part. I appreciate that.
And
Well,
this is
this
So
going
how
is
to,
that
this is a good jumping off point around the archetypes, because I've been obsessed with them since I read Jung, in like high school and shit, and realized they're actually a real body of work that psychotherapists and depth psychologists and storytellers, the Robert Bly's, the Martin Shaws, like they've used these to massive effect. They're not just like a cool story or like a Netflix and chill, although that's how most people relate to them, because it's like fiction and whatever. We all love our shows and our movies and our books. And I think that's awesome. Art is dope. And they have real places in the human psyche, especially in the psyche of men. Now, when you look at our world, the archetypes are very scattered and underrepresented, right? So I'll never forget, this was in a symposium in the Men's Academy. It was a new brother who's very kind of brass tacks, kind of, business oriented kind of guy. And he's like, what is this talk about King Warrior? Like, this is all LARP. It's live action role play. It's all bullshit.
uh,
And like that, activated me, because I'm like,
yeah,
ooh, like let's fucking duel. And a part of me is like, could fully understand that. Of course, if you're like,
both
oh
and
yeah, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and you're like, it's
yeah,
not real. And just imagine if people actually honored the code of ethics, the value structure, the loyalty, the brotherhood, the valor, all those things in real life. We're not fighting orcs in Mordor, but we are fighting negative anti-life forces in reality. And we have to embody those virtues. The archetypes are a pathway to them in the psyche. It's not like made up. the reason Aragorn is so attractive to young men is because he's stimulating something innate in their DNA. It's not because he's just a cool character.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this
I'd
says
like to
something actually
add
about
here that with
fiction
the
as a
release
whole.
of the files, I'd like to add that with the release of the files, we see a fraction of the absolute darkness that is in the world, that runs the world,
Mm.
and that has polluted and corrupted a lot of these archetypes. And they've promoted the negative aspects of many of these systems. So we have to really get going and find a way to effectively spread the news that no, there's a different way of being, that you don't have to be a servant of these forces. You can live your own life. You can be your own person, and you can grow and develop. And there's more to existence than just the next Netflix special or Funko Pop or video game or Instagram or Twitter controversy or whatnot.
And
Yes.
through that,
Thank you,
Lewis,
Lewis.
I would say as well that in that way we are kind of fighting orcs, are we not? But I'll take it a step further with these archetypes, and I'll say it's very rare, and I think it probably takes going through a lot of archetypes to get there. Um, Before you see someone that is truly themselves, and that's a very complicated thing to talk about. But what I notice more and more, and it's so easy to kind of always say, oh, well, that's the other guy. It's never me, right? But it's important to kind of humble ourselves before that the our greatest enemy, which is the pride of power, manifested in something like a ring, that we think we can control. If we only had the power, we could eliminate all the evil in the world, right? So, but what I see more and more is that people are inhabiting archetypes without intention. And
Without initiation.
well, they don't even realize they're doing it. But the psyche has such a need to inhabit something, to find meaning, to find purpose
Yep.
in life. And what's happening in modernity, especially the way that like the modern education system is set up, which the Shadow Council aims, well, more on that later. I do think we should talk about kind of the meta structure, what the Fellowship and the Shadow Council are in the interspace, the infinite realm of the network state, derivative. I'm not trying to quote the book, so I mean the network area of non-standard geography based community. Anyway, people are inhabiting these archetypes from, honestly, I think that what's happening is like political parties, movements. It used to be like the goth, right? It happens even with you'll have like the high school archetypes, right? That's the first time it happens, is people are looking for this purpose in their life and they have no standard by which to define it. And so this is why I say very often do you find people that are just themselves. Usually you have to go through a lot before you're capable of doing that. And so that the standard to which they measure how well they're doing is against a value system that they really need to get from somewhere. And very often they're not getting that from their parents or the church or anything like that anymore. And so, and you're a nerd if you get it from, your favorite superhero, right? Uh, Funny story about
Yeah.
that. But that's happening, and if it's not done with intentionality, it's going to be done without you realizing it, and then you're being controlled by forces, by these newer archetypes that are bastardizations of the ancient archetypes. And next thing you know, the standard by which you're being, quality is being measured is by who best represents some political movement that is the most, obsessed with, self-defacing, woe is me. I'm going to be the biggest noise in the room, and I'm going to, call
Mm-hmm.
myself 10 different things and dye my hair pink, and I'm going to, up, raise and elevate bad health and being fat as a virtue and die at 30 years old. This is pulling a lot here in. I'm saying a lot here, but hopefully I'm touching on this idea that that becomes an archetype and that becomes the quality, that becomes the standard, and it'll sneak up on you and you won't even realize it because you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
test your reality.
Yeah. I mean, we've brought a lot into the space that's very real now. The Epstein files, the lack of rites of passage, wokeism. Before I just speak a little bit to that, give me a moment. Kevin, you finally like influenced me to take my health in front of screens seriously. And recently they gifted me a really beautiful pair of blue blockers.
Mm.
They're kind of, I'm going for it. I'm gonna see how this goes.
No, just do the experiment. It feels good. Like, if you're on screens a lot, like even having the blue like shaded like settings on
Yeah.
your stuff, it's actually better on your eyes. I also just, there's also a rule of cool here, so
I
it's a
mean, I
it's a
like the
double
shape of
whammy.
these. Yeah, David Asprey's not selling these for sure. Neither is Luke Story. So anyway,
It's a very
um,
70s.
what
I'd
you're
love to
talking
hear from
to.
Christopher if you have a
Oh,
take on this before we structure more.
Let's hear from Anchor first. He's got something.
I just want to put a plug in there to kind of like take all this beautiful theoretic information, conceptual information that Russell surfaced. Is that he's right? Like we organize into these gangs, into these posses, into these like very light touch embracing of certain archetypes like the goth or the alts in this, because especially for men, because if we don't have that rite of passage, we don't have that education to understand what it is that we're aligning with and be guided into right relationship with masculine archetypes, and from there, grander and more complex non-binary archetypes. And it just, we have to find something. And with the programming that he alluded to around like, Western capitalism and lone wolfism and what does success mean? And like, okay, political parties seem important to false gods of power and money. That's going to create the aperture for which some sort of, archetype or meme or just like egregore enters. It will shape you. You will be shaped whether you like it or not. And men specifically need to be intentionally shaped. Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I will add here that when we are building these fellowships and these communities, there's always going to be flux. There's always going to be growing pains. I know Russ and myself and the others in the council, we are for that really bonded together after a number of people came and they either weren't quite right for us or they didn't have the time or they just weren't able to be part of it. And right now we have a very strong core, and we're trying to expand it. And basically, that's how anyone can work with their group. And if things go wrong, if things collapse, start again, because this is very important that people actually get together and make real friendships, uh, so that they can know that they are not isolated atoms being crushed by the system.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Yeah, and this is really at the heart of the earlier conversations like 3 or 4 months ago with Kevin and Kyle around the fellowship, which is the epidemic of loneliness, depression, numbing out, avoiding, and just to sort of recap on a lot of the themes that we've been drawing on, narrative, and then this idea of orientation to, okay, so here's all of these different narratives, Lord of the Rings, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Christ, Buddha, whatever narrative. And it's like, okay, and so what is this reflecting for me, and what is true for me, and where am I? If you look at a narrative like a map, like even the map of consciousness with spiritual practices like the core teachings of the Buddha, like there's a real way to look at whatever the narrative is and then say something like this to yourself. And here I am, and here are the orcs, here are the wars, here are whatever it is, and then what is my role? What is my role, and where am I at? Am I the Buddha? Am I one of the disciples of the Buddha? Am I the dude on the outside of the village that's like, fuck this Buddhism thing? And there's a way to orient. This is the one of the last things I'll share on this note, because it's been very live in the town hall that we just had, but also in conversations I was having around the fire at this epic party with Kyle. And it's this idea, comes from Ram Dass, someone that I've been really influenced by in my path, which is his teacher said, do what you have to do, but never keep anyone out of your heart. So when it comes to like Epstein, for example, or something like that, it's this recognition of living in some kind of interconnected basic reality. And like, sometimes that does mean putting this person way over here or sending them to Mars or something like that. Um, and that's what we're doing in the fellowship, as well as from what I understand in the Shadow Council, and starting really slow and developing the friendships and relationships, like you were saying, Lewis, to arrive at a point where we're really clear on like this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, and to create a reality where all men, I mean, ideally, yes, all human beings, everyone has the tools that they need to do to go where they want to go, that is in greatest service for the protection of freedom, truth, love, liberation, power, whatever you want to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There's so many ways we can take this, but in an interest of time, I think one thing that's really important, since we're talking about the fellowship and the Shadow Council here, is the structure of that, and what it can offer, and why it needs to. And so I have a feeling that you guys have a similar vision, but I'll go ahead and speak to what I think, and then get a good reply from all of you. For me, I was working on, I was in school for 9 years, working on my PhD, almost done with it. And then, there came a point where I realized that the real pursuit of truth, and truth as the highest, as that which is to be aimed for, that which to strive for, that which to anchor in, and that which is revelation inspired and revealed by participation in the mystery together. That I really believe truly is the meaning of life. Now, I realized that it had left the institutions, right? And I think that's been happening for a very long time. And I think that only now in this current age are we starting to, have found a way to see through that. It's also become the most ridiculous as far as the institutions charging exorbitant amounts of money combined with government loans that are the only loan that are, will direct, what do they call those subsidized loans that'll take the money directly out of your bank, right? And so there's getting people at 17 to sign up for a lifetime of pseudo slavery, paying that thing back, right? And they're told that if they don't, then basically there'll be no one, and their entire high school experience is trying to slot in and basically get with the program against ones, and anybody that kind of sticks out a little too much, we're going to give them ADHD and make them pay for medication, right? This whole system, and it's bigger than that, but I don't have time to mention it, but this whole thing, I think it's reached this point of ridiculousness that it's gone beyond tolerable, and it also enables the future, dare I say, men to mount a counter effort, right, in whatever way they can. And I really think of this time as reminiscent of the church springing up in the bowels of the decaying Roman Empire, meeting in the shadows and the sewers. At that time, it wasn't, there's so many that want to direct their energy towards saving the world. But the world is rather large, and I think that a lot of those pieces are necessary, and a lot of people are only the type of people that want to be part of that system. Think of, Morpheus and the best speech in that film, right, when he's talking about they will, however he says it, right? They are willing to die to protect it, Um, and and so I really think that groups, organizations that move away from the what do I want to be when I grow up and teach people who they want to be whenever they grow up. I think that these groups of ethos based accreditation, accreditation, is that the right word? It might not be. The process that the government, oh, hey, these institutions that are age old that cost X amount of money, they're the ones that count, and they're the ones that businesses are going to accept people from. I think that we can wipe that off the face of the earth, right? I think that there are now men like us hiring people, and those people are looking for people that are quality, right? That have the skills that they need to get those jobs. And I think that all they're looking for is someone to trust. And right now, the best they can do is use a college degree as a part of that. But I now know people that say, Russ, if you take some new kid and you tell me, if you give him a certificate and tell me that he's good to go and can work for me, I'll hire him over anybody else. So it's that mentality, that level of like reputation, right, that needs to permeate. And I think that by doing that, we create we completely subvert the system. We create a new communities, and we create real possibility that is truth centered, which people hiring care about. And it's better for the individual. It's better for the person growing up. It's better for all of society. All it takes is the pivot and the desire and the reputation and taking that seriously on our part. So that way, we're not just pushing out certificates to people that we don't believe in, right? We set a new standard, and we develop that reputation as a force in the community capable of doing those things as judged by others, our peers now that are doing the hiring, that are creating the groups, that are creating the space and believe in the same things that we are. This is about creating a network. And that's from the Shadow Council now with the fellowship. We have other branches, right, with the Men's Academy. And I see all of this as this network, this intergeographic network of people that have the same wavelength, the same minds going on, that are outside of that original system, that want to break free from it. And through this process, we create those opportunities if we take that seriously. So that's my helicopter view. I'd like to hear what everybody thinks about that.
Let me take a moment to reflect that back to you to see if I'm understanding what it is the Shadow Council is doing. And so it sounds to me like what you're interested in is helping people, I don't know if it's just men, but helping people see the truth of what's happening in the world right now, like uncovering and de-occulting the ways that they've been told to be. And in that, availing them to the truth of what's possible, the truth of why things have been, and creating a system of trust and rapport that these people share similar values and ideals, that the way it's going doesn't work. It is disenfranchising us. It is manipulating us. It is enslaving us. And there's a better way. Does that kind of summarize what you're about?
Yeah, that's a really good summary. There's a lot, tons of little details, but yeah, that's the big picture.
And it sounds like you want to create a community that's like in some way recognized to certification or acknowledgement so others can know who they are. Great. And so how the fellowship kind of dovetails onto that, because we're also interested in this idea of truth and de-occulting the mystery of the way the shadows have played over the light of the world. But in its like most essential form, what we are is a men's mystery school that is a forge for creating guardians of life and protection of the sacred. And we have particular definitions around that, like life is generative, life is progressive, life moves forward, life is light. And simply put, the sacred are the things that are in place to foster life. That's kind of at the core of what we are here to do. And there is definitely a great synergy in that, because you cannot become a guardian of life and a protector of the sacred if you're still shackled by the lies of what that is. And that's the shadow.
And
Yeah.
so in our group, we have like kind of multiple multiple goals here. One of those goals is to be a guide potentially to younger individuals, most likely young men, but basically anyone who's willing to listen about the perils and pitfalls of the modern world and what you can do to make yourself strong enough to face them and be your own person and be an actual player in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna double click on something that I heard all of you speak to just now, Russ, Lewis, and Kyle, with this men's mystery school and the threat of philosophy. I mean, Russell, hearing you speak, I think I was at the same timeline where I went to college to be an accountant. And why? Why? It's like, well, that's the thing that's going to make me the most amount of money. But then I really started to question. I'm like, wait a minute. I actually, the real reason why I went to college is to pursue my vocation, my life purpose. What is the thing that I want to give myself to for the sake of itself? Because I'm inspired by it, because it brings more joy. Like, what is that thing? Where then it doesn't matter how much I'm getting paid or not getting paid for it. So there's this choice point, and I realized, wait a minute, this voice of go do the thing that's going to make you the most amount of money wasn't coming from inside of me. And I'm like, this is scary. Do I really want to give all of my life to something that I don't even actually give a fuck about? Because I don't know what I give a fuck about, what really actually matters to me. And so there's this choice point. Fortunately, it was a real liberal arts school at the time, not so much now. But again, that goes into these alternative learning places like we're creating. Um, and I decided philosophy. One of my philosophy professors said the only reason someone would study philosophy is if they want to live a happy life. And for some reason, a lot of the other students in the class were just like, I'm only here because this is one of my prerequisites and I have to take it, get me into my accounting thing or whatever. But that made sense to me. I'm like, I'm willing to go all in on that because that makes sense in and of itself, not connected to some thing that I may or may not get in the future, like this narrative of, oh, when I'm 60 or 50, if I really bust ass 70 hours a week and get to be a partner in the accounting firm, then I can retire and then I can be happy. And how many times have you or maybe somebody listened to this done something where it's like, I'm doing this now for the golden goodie that I'm going to get, but every step I get closer, that golden goodie just gets further and further and further away.
Next thing you know, you're married. You're 50 years old. You're 20 years into a profession, right? And we wonder why. Why are these people so stuck in the system? Why can't they get out? But think about the cost, right? Like the cost that their subconscious has to overcome compared to hopefully others in college or high school that are listening to this now. I often try to direct my attention to this 16-year-old version of myself that needed something like this that I'm doing now, and trying to say, okay, I can be that person now, right? Like I can be that big brother that I needed then. I needed somebody that was respectful, worthy of my respect enough that when they said, look, you don't have to do what your parents are telling you or what your teachers are telling you, that you're smarter than, right? Like, I believe you. It's okay, right? Like, you're going to be okay. Walk with me. I'll help you, right? And I think like being that is great because the last thing you want to do is go the other way because you never get those years back, right? And next thing you know, the cost of that person I just represented, this hypothetical 50-year-old businessman that on paper it looks like he's doing great. The system's telling him that he's a real winner, right? His family hates him. He doesn't know why he's married to his wife. He hates his job, and so he's mean to people under him, and he's grouchy all the time, and he's drinking himself to sleep every night. How many people do you think exist like that in the real world? Do you think there's more of them or more Christophers out there? Right. And so what path do you want to be on? Who do you want to listen to? Those are
And
things you should probably ask yourself.
that's the big thing right there. It's the choice point, the space that gets created. And it's like, what am I really doing? What is really worthy of my time and my energy? What do I really want? And then deciding, like, to me, that was one of my first initiations. That moment, I wonder about you all, if you've ever, I'm sure you've had moments like this where I didn't ask my parents, I didn't ask my girl, I didn't have a girlfriend to ask at the time, hey, should I go all in on this? It's like, no, there was a moment where it's like, this is what I am doing, and I'm not asking anyone else about it because it's the best thing for my peace, my happiness, and my well-being. And choosing it, and then, like, that's it. How is it going to
Mm.
turn out? What's the definition of a mystery school? It's a mystery.
There you
But
I
go.
it's the
don't know.
courage to step into the mystery and be like, I know that I love this and I'm doing it with people that I love. And the more we do it, the more it's spreading. And I had no idea that this was gonna come when I started
Mhm.
going to men's circles with Anchor 3 years ago. And are there a lot of unknowns still? Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, but again, that's part of the mystery.
Yeah.
Well, this
What do you got,
ties
Yeah.
Kevin?
into
Yeah, there
this
you go.
ties into a lot of different aspects we touched on, right? It's really interesting. One of my oldest childhood friends, he came and stayed with me recently. You know, it was just like the old days. There was no weirdness. It was like we were 16 again in Houston. And he was kind of like, he made this interesting comment. He's like, yeah, man, you've always been kind of obsessed with like tribes and all this stuff, like community. It's like, I don't get it. What's the big deal? And it was such a simple, innocent thing. And I was like, it kind of like took me back. I was like, man, like we've been so quickly conditioned because you know, 1945, post World War II era, to be this like hyper individualist kind of cog in a machine mindset. You know, you can listen to Dark Side of the Moon. Pink Floyd has a track on every aspect of what we're talking about. They kind of nailed it. The counterinsurgency or the counteroffensive you're talking about, Russ, is what the Shadow Council is doing. It's what the Men's Academy is doing. It's what the Fellowship's doing. All these groups are responding like antibodies to a need that is emerged in the meta crisis or whatever you want to call it, the poly crisis. There's an amazing meme. There's this black woman, and she's like, wow, like, you know, living as a hunter gatherer in a village or in rural lifestyle, it's amazing. I have childcare for my kids. I know everyone in my village. We have more than enough food to eat from what we grow and what we hunt. Everyone is supportive. There's rituals and da da da. And then like the capitalist comes in. It's like, hey, I got a deal for you. Why don't you move to a city? And it's like, okay, why would I do that? It's like, well, you can get a good job. And it's like, what am I going to do with that? Well, then you can pay to have childcare for your kids. And you can pay to go out and gain status and gain friendships and da da da. And it's like, why would I do that when I have it already? And the urbanization, globalization thing, while it has produced many amazing things, like right now the world's in this race to get to super intelligence with AI and all the crazy shit. Tech does happen in industrial centers, tool making, you know, it's part of the Western ethos is we want to extend our master of material world. And I think it's amazing. We could live in super abundance. Go see Buckminster Fuller, go look at Jacques Fresco, Venus Project, the resource-based economy. Like we could have all that, but the problem isn't material goods. It's not physics or engineering. It's cultural, which is why people feel called, especially men, to gather small communities and launch this counter strike against postmodernity.
Hmm. Hmm.
And to
Yeah. Can I
historical
just chime in for
aspect.
sorry, I just feel like I want to really chime in for a moment there while a couple of these topics are still really hot. The choice point, right? That's been mentioned. There's a choice point. And some of us have been aware of a lot of what's been revealed in this year of the apocalypse, like what Lewis mentioned earlier, like the Epstein files. Big shock to a lot of people, not to all of us. And a lot of people right now are becoming very aware that everyone on every side of the equation of politics, of society, of government, of spirituality is led by monsters through and through. And so many people that I'm working with who are on the path and much more aware than the folks that are in the cohort that Russell mentioned, you know, 50, retirement, family, loans, stuck, don't know what to do. They know there's a choice, but they're still kind of grinding through it. Even them, but more so the people that are just waking up. It's like they're given a choice right now. There's two things that they can do primarily energetically. Continue living the life the way they're living, knowing the truth, the apocalyptic aeonic truth that they are under the oppression of tyrants and monsters, right? Or do something about it. And they're both terrifying choices. That is why this is not just a year of the apocalypse, of the unveiling of the truth, which is all it means. It's equanimous by nature, but also the year of the fire horse to come together. People like us coming together to form these coherent, powerful communities that can support these people, the ones who actually choose, all right, I want to do something about it. I don't know what to do. I'm like, yeah, I remember being there. I mean, show you what worked for me. And we also need to come together to take care of each other, because in the face of that, so much insane chaotic energy is going to be expressed in the Western cultures. Like it's insane. Like so much stuff I see around me, like, you know, people getting cancer, people dying, like cars crashing all over the place. It's almost like hard to leave home. But that's the choice point. Metaphysically, symbologically, like all these things, it's all true. And so here we are, doing our part.
So, yeah, as I was saying, there's a major historical aspect to this as well, because there has been generational trauma basically in every part of the world over the past few centuries, um, not only with the invasions and colonization, but also with industrialization, where people were stripped from their farming communities and forced to spend 12 hours a day, 6+ days a week in a dangerous, dirty factory. And then you have the world wars and the Cold War. And I mean, our boomer predecessors, they grew up in a world where there was relative abundance, but they were also told that the world could be destroyed in nuclear fire at any moment, and there was nothing they could do about it. And that kind of mindset, and a lot of their collective actions, I believe, can be attributed to that kind of upbringing. So we, as a community, we need to find ways to effectively deal with all of this, all of these problems and issues. And we also have to understand that, yeah, making tribes is wonderful, but they also have to be tough and resilient, and they have to be able to potentially strike back against any threats that might come against them, because ultimately nature, it is basically a pure meritocracy. It doesn't care if you are good or evil. It just cares if you can survive and propagate. And that's kind of one of the major tensions with us as humans, because we are supposed to be decent to each other, to love each other, sometimes from afar, but we're not supposed to have that dog eat dog mindset, but nature kind of forces us to do so. So it's a matter of like overcome that, and either overcome it or at least live within it in a healthy, reasonable way.
I think finding ways to integrate all of those aspects of the human condition, which the hoi polloi or the masses often would prefer to hide from. I think it's in their hiding from these things that many of the issues that we're now dealing with are manifesting, because they allowed them to exist without naming them. And when you do that, it can grow right in front of you and you won't see it, right? If you don't name the elephant, what is the big gray thing in the room that seems to be growing and causing problems? So that also speaks to what I noticed was a topic that kind of came up recently here with the fellowship that we probably don't have too much time to get into. I want to respect everybody's time here. And I think Christopher mentioned we do this about an hour, so we're getting there. But I want to mention something that I think is important, and that is being able to and I want to be able to do that with these podcasts and communication, and just it's the council's, I think, prerogative, and it's probably a virtue, and that is to be able to speak about all things, right? I think we should get away from this. There are words that we can't say, right? Or they'll summon bad guys into existence, right? It's like, no, it's like force lightning is a Sith ability, right? You're not supposed to use that. But little does, many of the Padawans at the Jedi Academy know that, Mace Windu is trained to use that, right? Like it shouldn't be that we're scared of certain powers. It's how we use them, right? And in this case, spells or words. All of these things, the reason that they cause so much strife and chaos follows in their wake is because we haven't learned to control them, because we're too afraid to say them. There shouldn't be anything like that. And so I understand that the nature of how we live right now. I can't just sit here and list all those, or probably won't be able to post this onto a platform. But you should be able to do that in your own communities, in your own spaces. And not only should you, but I challenge you to do it. Because if we don't gain control over those powers, and they are powers, then others will. And you don't want that to be the case with anything associated with power. So yeah, maybe we can speak to that for a second, and then try to think about how we want to maybe close this out. And this is great. I mean, maybe we'll do another one. We'll see how it goes. But I want to make sure everybody's time is respected here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm happy to hang out a little longer.
Yeah, same. I was gonna say like 15, 20 minutes past the hour works for me. And if somebody's got to bounce out when they got to bounce out, they could do that. But I'm gonna go into this power thing that you mentioned, Russ, and relate it to what Kyle was sharing, what you were sharing previously too. Kyle and I were just talking about this 2 nights ago. When I looked at my ancestry chart reading, all these different places where people came from, mostly to the United States from Europe, there's just story after story of, wow, starvation, a family living in, because they couldn't own land in Ireland, and they're living inside a one-room structure that doesn't have windows, because what's the point of building something that you don't even own, and you're living with the farm animals all in the same room with your 6 children. And there's just story after story of people, my ancestors, that had deep, deep suffering and were running from something. And so that's one side of the equation, and Kyle can speak for himself on that if he wants to, with his own ancestry. And that's just like the recent past, that's about 300 years. Now, let's assume that studies say the modern human has been here for about 200,000 or 300,000 years, something like that. I did the math on this. That would mean we have approximately, each of us, 10,000 father, mother, grandfather, great, 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 10,000 people inside of you. And then who knows what came before that. And so there's this incredible power inside of each of us from all of those 10,000 people. And before that, whoever came before that, what do we do with that power? How do we wield it? How do we wear the ring of power without being overtaken by it? So it's this prideful thing that is actually doing more damage and harm. And the other side of the equation, which I was really, really struggling at an ayahuasca ceremony 3 years ago, like just in an endless hell realm. I won't even get into the details of it, but the worst possible thing that I could imagine, only to realize that I'm coming back lifetime after lifetime to be stuck in this trap. My good bro came up to me in the morning, and we just had some really good bro time. He was holding me, and he's like, "Christopher, you are a fucking killing machine." And so that's, the good guys and quote unquote good guys who have walked away for more freedom, harmony, peace. That's in me. And the murderers, the killers, that's in me too. Most likely
Mm.
10,000 people. So it's like there's something here to be like, okay, and now here I am. Here we are. What are we going to do with this power?
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta double tap on that. I really gotta jump in. So I'm just gonna like highlight the things I'm gonna speak to. So Lewis earlier mentioned something about the Industrial Revolution, right? How that created a rift and separation, especially in men. And then there's this idea of, yeah, recent ancestral trauma, like very recent, and then like the deeper past and what that has to do with power initiation. And so again, speaking specifically from a lens around initiation in men, after the Industrial Revolution, like boys were so distant from their fathers. They were so remote. They were no longer learning their trade or their craft or anything from them. Never even mind like getting rite of passage in the early teens. And so what happens when the father is absent and you're young boy, you just learn to not trust him. It's a natural development of not trusting. And in that void, the perspective that you will take on is your mother's. And during those times, the mother's perspective was not a fortuitous one, right? And as a part of the rite of passage that should be, that always has been, the men intentionally take the boy away from the mother and they're playing into it. You know, it's going to happen. They make a big hoi polloi and hoopla about it. Oh, don't take my son away, to break the boy psychology to the mother. Because if that doesn't happen, the mother instinctively always wants to keep her boys close and coddled. She will do this for as long as she can. And so that remoteness from the father engenders all this distrust in men, a distrustful feminine perspective of men and their fathers. And then they just have to live with that without a rite of passage and initiation, which is already lost. In that void, power, sociopaths and psychopaths is what I believe who rise to power. In order to keep that power, they need to find other young men and boys to learn how to do it, and women too. It's not just like toxic masculine energy. And so rather than actually being a patriarchy or a matriarchy, because patros and matros really means like fully individuated, mature, respectful, God-driven men and women, we have a sociopatharchy and a psychopatharchy, both men and women, right? That's what's ruling the world right now, and that's the abuse of power. And one thing that my teacher on the Red Road really let me point out, and this is the last big point I want to make. It feels so like poignant and pertinent. He's like, it's great that you're studying your deep past history, the ancestral, the Celt, the Norse, the Gaelic. Like, yeah, the pagan revival of these earth arts is really important right now to levy and balance everything that began the whole New Age movement with the light and love, heart chakra up stuff that was necessary then because we were so poisoned and dark. But he's like, I don't think you're going to make much more progress, Kyle, unless you really look at what happened recently, like who you are, this Irish, this Italian, this Norse mutt that came to New England, the birthplace of Western modern civilization as we know it, promised freedom, promised the American dream, promised to be removed from the tyranny of British rule, and then immediately reoppressed and retyrannized, immediately driven underground to form mobs and gangs and become criminals and gangsters to survive. The light side is they understand virtue, loyalty, honor, and family. The dark side is they were completely severed from connection to God, spirit, and nature because they were murderers and criminals. And that's not okay. It's deep karma. And so all I can think about when I realize that is, holy shit, I address that. I got a stronger conduit and channel to like ancestral magic and an understanding that New England, where I am from, what I am born from, is literally this like birthplace of so much of the negative and destructive and dark, like evil dark energy that has been abused by those in power now. Like this is where it started. Like I carry this in some way I don't fully understand. And their ancestors are so powerful and they wouldn't have stood for any of this. So if I can come to understanding how to wield that power in a good way, and I can bring that to the men of the West who are mostly asleep and dormant to this ancient, just unparalleled power, it's fucking game over. And I think that's what's at hand right now during this awakening. like this is what we can do, because it's power to the people. And these people, they were just unstoppable when they were connected to the power of their spirit and of God and of nature. And that's the people. That's them right there. They have the West. Right now they're enslaved, and all that power is being used to like abuse and tyrannize. But we're this close to that shift. And that's why I feel empowered, because I am that. I am them. I couldn't be closer to them.
Let's go. There's an amazing Robert Anton Wilson quote that's coming to mind where it's like, states or governments are literally gangs of hypnotists which are peddling ideologies over the planet. They're cartels. They're gangs. You know, the Illuminati, all these like secret societies. Their power literally comes from deception. I mean, they're practicing the art of war at a very high level. It's deception. It's hidden. So it's occulted, not in the magical sense, but in the hidden sense. And it's all ideological because they lose most of their power, if not all of it, when they don't have willing participants giving consent under natural law, because we live in a free will universe. Now, what's fascinating about like criminal elements like gangs or the mafia, these guys understood that. And instead of like playing nice, they're like, dude, fuck you. We're going to make a rival gang and we're going to take care of our own. Now, did they commit crimes and like break karmic bonds and things? Yeah. I mean, there's bad apples for sure. And yet, when you watch a good, you know, gangster movie, obviously Godfather, the trilogy is the GOAT, Goodfellas, all these like mafia movies, they also have some very powerful virtues like loyalty, family, honor, and they don't take shit. And, you know, I don't wish for a world that's at war, civil war, anything. I think we have the technology and resources to literally, not like a utopian world, it's going to be filled with problems, but kinetic warfare is just like abhorrent. It's ridiculous. We should be able to conduct mimetic warfare and defeat the negative ideologies. That being said, shit hit the fan here in Texas, you know, you better believe, am I going to go talk to like the coach who knows how to build the best marketing funnel? Nah, dude, I want the Bubba who has a bunch of rounds of ammo and some like ATVs, and I want to have a militia to protect my family. Like it's just it's ancient primal shit, and that is one of the biggest failings. You know, card carrying member here of the new age community. So I'm talking to myself too. They've completely forgone the survival. You know, more like as Peterson would say, you need to be a dangerous man to be a good man. That is definitely missing.
I'm really glad you said that, actually, because that was the element that I was trying to think of. How can I introduce here in the limited time that we have left? Because we've really, I think we did paint a really good picture, I think, for the listener. Hopefully you're not staring up our nose the whole time. You guys are hopefully have your YouTube on audio, you know, unless you're staring at our faces. So I haven't planned for that, but I do think we painted a pretty good picture for the listener or viewer out there. But the one thing that I do think is missing, because there are at this point, with all these communities the way that they are, they're in different kind of stages, all kind of on the same path. And what we say with the Shadow Council is, especially this year, as we transitioned, you know, to the fire horse as mentioned, we really wanted to be in that first step, because what I was starting to notice is a lot of tribes gathering and talking up this gathering. We're getting ready. I think some people have been, and I think a culture's piggybacked off a subculture, right? Like I think there's probably like a 70s kind of movement that kind of got like integrated into this next kind of movement that comes out of a slightly similar place, but also oriented slightly differently. And I think that was a merging that happened with some sort of like original, maybe more hippie-like vision. And, you know, peace is great, right? Peace is the best. What's the Sith code? Peace is a lie. There's only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, victory. And through victory, my chains are broken and I am set free. Now think about that first line. Peace is a lie. What does that mean? It means that all Sith recognize that if peace were not a lie, If peace were attainable, all Sith say, that's how I would live. But why does it start with that? Because peace is a lie, right? So because peace is a lie, all the rest, right? Because peace is a lie, we have to be powerful. Otherwise, we'll be enslaved. So how do we become free? We recognize that peace would be heaven, right? Peace would be all, but there will be no peace. So let's kill that, right? And let's move on from that, and let's find a way to free ourselves, to take control in a way that does introduce like a masculine, say militant might be a strong word, but at least a warrior ethos, so that no one forgets that we always have to defend it, right? There will always be the encroaching evil, the encroaching darkness. There will always be the element of biology that Darwin saw on his island, right? There's always going to be the cheater bird that I've referenced before that doesn't eat the parasites off the other birds, but lets them eat the parasites off of him, right? And that works until the ecology, misbalances, and then the whole freaking flock dies, right? Because there's this mutual thing that's forgotten as nature takes its course and everybody becomes a cheater bird. Hopefully that all clicked together there. I don't have a lot of time and I'm trying to say a lot at once, but we need to retain that power. Lewis, I see you.
Yeah, tiger's prowling.
To add here, I don't see peace as a lie. I just don't see it as really necessarily permanent in this world, because things seem to be based around the endless cycle and dance of creation and destruction. And without them, you can't truly have growth. You have stasis. So war is not permanent. Peace is not permanent. Pain and misery is not permanent. Happiness is temporary. It's always shifting and always cycling. And you have to understand that.
And the peace that was promised to the Western world has been a lie. That is happening right now. The understanding of that, the reconfiguration of what peace is. Well, shit, that wasn't it. And my salary job and my pension and my home and my car, my land isn't peace. And what the fuck is it?
And that returns to all these words that are so insufficient, right? What is peace? It's an energy. It's an energy. What does it feel like? Can't use words to tell you that, unless I say very, very, very good, right? Some element of that, right? And mix in like satellite a bunch of words into a constellation, and it's something like love plus beauty plus peace plus community plus childlike exploration, right? Plus participation in a mystery, plus accommodation and sensitivity and strength. It's all of these things.
I mean, peace, if you want to look at it from like the gene keys of human design, it's a acidic state, right? It's an attainment. It's a North Star. We can taste it in non-worldly ways, but it's all those things. It's trust, it's surrender, it's compassion, it's virtue, it's loyalty, it's empathy, it's unity. And acidic states also indicate a necessity to have touched and understanding God in your own way.
All right, guys. I think we've got our bonus time in here. Does anybody want to get a last word in here from Christopher or Kevin? Anybody else we haven't heard from before we close this thing out?
This has been epic. We should do this more. We should come up with a name for this, where it's like Shadow Council, Cross Fellowship. I don't know what we call it, but we scratched the surface here. There's obviously like 5 more hours just in this conversation to actually get to some kind of bottom of it. Beautiful things have been said. Just shout out to anyone's watching this later, the recording, whatever, wherever it's posted. If you're a man and you want to get involved, you want to be in rooms like this, hit us up. Hit up Russell, hit up myself, hit up Lewis, hit up Kyle, hit up Christopher, and join the fellowship and join the Shadow Council, because men are out there doing it. Find the others, as old Tim Leary said. You're not going to get anything done in your room binging YouTube videos. Gather with the men.
And
Piggyback up.
If you're a lady watching, we're also thinking of or figuring out a way to include the feminine aspects in this community as well. So, one step at a time, but don't worry, we gotcha.
Especially if you're a leader lady, because we could use one of those to like pave the way. I think it's kind of hard to be the first, but yeah, we absolutely have space at the table for you as well. Lastly, I do want to just harken off of that last point Kevin made. The difference between us and whatever mimetic regurgitator happens to be, skimming the best parts of some ancient text and, putting it through an AI filter and delivering it to you, hopefully with their own voice and not an AI voice, is that if you comment, we'll put the link to basically everything you need to come into contact with us. And, I commit to you're going to get a response within 24 hours, right? So if this hits you, right, somewhere in that energy field lens of perspective soup where the infinite meets the finite, that you are, if you resonate in any way with that, reach out. We want you, right? Like this is an outreach, right? This is a call. This is the Horn of Gondor, right? So we hope to hear from you, and thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to bring more to you soon. Thank you.
Amen.
you, everyone.
Hail
Thank
to the
you.
gods and goddesses. Skol.
Mm.
Oh,
Hallelujah. Om Namah Shivaya. Check the links in the comments in the description to this video. And the last piece that I'll share, I'll speak for you all. I'm pretty sure it's true for you too. We're not interested in like, oh yeah, you're in and here, let's go. Like we're interested in if it's true for you, if it's right for you. And if that's not us and that's not what we're doing, then we'll do our best to offer an idea or maybe even just say, I don't know. So with that, thank you everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your time, your energy, gentlemen, and all of you watching. Till next time.
Help you start your own thing too. Like we'd love to do that. Make you part of this larger network. Like if you're the leader of your flock, Amor Fati.